Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our third webinar. The topic is today, how to find and create a like-minded community while you travel. When I started my nomadic journey in 2015, I felt like a kid in a candy store. I was so happy and grateful that I could travel anywhere I wanted, go anywhere I wanted at any time without having to ask a boss for time off or ask anyone to decide together with. I could travel on my own. I didn't have to wait for my friends to make up their minds. I loved it. But I was also moving every 2 weeks for that first summer, visiting friends who lived in different places in Europe. And so, yeah, every 2 weeks I was moving. And I hear that a lot of my fellow nomads started out this way. So while chasing freedom and traveling is what makes many of us most excited to start our digital nomad lifestyle, one of the most important things that may creep in and something that many people fear before starting their nomadic journey is feeling lonely. After all, we're social animals, we're social creatures, but there is an antidote. And one of them is finding a like-minded community. Today, we have 3 incredible speakers for you for this webinar, and they have each created amazing communities for you to join or for you to get inspired by. The masterminds behind Nomad Cruise, Digital Nomad Girls, and Digital Nomad Village in Madeira are joining us to discuss how to create and find your own community as you travel the world. Guys, welcome. I'd like to start with introducing Jennifer. Jennifer Lex is a scientist turned digital nomad entrepreneur and founder of Digital Nomad Girls. DNG invites us to reimagine what it means to be location independent and running a business by creating a community for women who envisage a kinder world in an era of toxic productivity, destructive capitalism, and rampant patriarchy. In her premium community, the DNG Inner Circle, Jenny connects and supports location independent women along their entrepreneurial journeys through virtual events and shared learning. Thank you for joining us, Jenny. Welcome. We have...
Hi, Rosanna. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. Gonçalo Hall is a remote work consultant and evangelist who launched projects like Remote Work Movement, Future of Work conferences, Remote Portugal and Remote Europe in order to help the movement grow and spread. The Digital Nomad Village is Gonçalo's most recent project, being developed in Ponta do Sol, Madeira Island, where he is building a community of digital nomads focused on positive local impact and connections. Thank you for joining us, Gonçalo.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. Johannes. Johannes has been a digital nomad since 2010. While he loved the lifestyle, he found it difficult to meet like-minded people. So he became a community builder himself and started the ultimate cruise conference and journey across the Atlantic Ocean called the Nomad Cruise. Thank you for joining us today as well, Johannes.
Great to be here today.
To get started, I think that everyone really wants to know about your communities. So I'd like to just jump right into it. My first question for each of you is to tell us a bit about your community and what, how, when, where, and why you started it. Shall we start with you, Jenny?
Yes, I'm happy to. Hi, everyone. Lovely meeting everyone. I know some of you already. So yeah, my community is called Digital Nomad Girls, and I think as the name says, it is a community for location-independent women. I started it very much at the beginning of my own digital nomad journey, literally within a couple of months of me starting to work online. I was in Thailand at the moment, and I very quickly realized that, community is very important. I think when we're starting out, we have a million questions. Also, this was in 2015, and a lot has changed since. There's a lot more information than there was at the time. You know, we were kind of cobbling it together by ourselves. So I realized I needed to ask questions. I had so many questions every day, and Google only got you really so far. Again, there was not that much information. So I, went to all the normal places, Facebook and so on. I was a very avid Facebook group user already because I had been traveling for 2 years and was using Facebook groups to meet travelers around the world and to ask questions about specific locations. So I did the same for digital nomads. And there were a couple of groups at the time already. All of them mixed. There wasn't a female-only digital nomad community in 2015. And I joined some of those. I joined local communities as well. I went to, join co-working spaces, went to events and so on. But I very quickly realized that there weren't really that many women. And it really surprised me because even when I still was working as a scientist, we still had a lot of women, even in chemistry. And it seemed there were fewer women in the digital nomad world than in chemistry. And I kind of had a feeling there was something off there. I had a feeling they were somewhere. I just had to find them because in the travel world itself, there are so many solo female travelers and so on. So yeah, I kind of noticed that a lot of the times I was literally the only one in the co-working space. I was the only woman there. And also, sadly, a few negative experiences also led me to start my community. And I was, just a lot of the communities in the online business world are still quite male dominated, and female voices are maybe not quite as welcome as, it's actually the same as in any kind of online space that we've seen. And, I kind of, after working in science for 10 years, I was like, nah, I'm not doing that again. I'm kind of done with that. Like the kind of very toxic productivity and hustle and competition and that kind of thing. So I decided to start my own community, and one that will be different than that. And yes, it is female only, but we also have like more values than that. It's not just about being women. It's about being really vulnerable and open and kind and supportive instead of competitive with each other. And that's how I've run my community ever since. It's been 6 years. About 3.5, nearly 4 years ago, I started my premium community, the D&G Inner Circle. And that is kind of the heart and soul of my business now. And I can just do a lot more things in there that I can't do in the free Facebook group. Just, logistically and time-wise, I wanted to dedicate more time to my members to really in person via Zoom events, in a Facebook group of 30,000 people. Yes, they can be great for certain things, but to generate some kind of intimacy is very difficult. I wanted a smaller, more focused, intimate community, and that's what my membership is now. So we support each other through virtual co-working and feedback sessions and all sorts of things. It's all about kind of shared learning and support and cheering each other on as well, because it's really hard to do this. And thankfully, we don't have to do it alone.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Jennifer. It's really interesting. And might be a great idea to join a network like Digital Nomad Girls. Gonçalo, would you like to tell us about how, why, where, when you started with your communities?
Sure. I was just a normal digital nomad who really wanted to go in the Nomad Cruise and had this trend. But yeah, I was just traveling around as a nomad. I had a full-time job when I started, and I started to launch my own project. The first one was the remote work movement, because I really think remote work is the tool that can change the world. This is how I see remote work. And 4 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, I wrote the project for a Digital Nomad Village, which the idea was to use digital nomadism as the entrance to then repopulate these villages in rural areas. Actually, the project was wrote for Italy, but somehow, out of nowhere, it landed in Madeira Island, which was incredible. So I applied the project to Madeira, and we chose Ponta do Sol because it's one of the warmest villages in Madeira and also one of the most beautiful ones. And the concept is basically, can we create a community in a place that was built around community? Villages, for me, they were built already around community. There is the main plaza, there is the little houses around, there is the services, and they are depopulated. They were pretty empty, and they are, most of them, in Portugal, in Spain, in Italy, even in France. They are very depopulated. So this project was written around that. And on February, we launched officially, start receiving the first nomads. And it was insane what happened. So right now, like, I'm very proud of the community in Ponta do Sol, not because of the size, which actually it surprised us. It was a lot, like 10 times bigger than we ever expected. Our goal was 200 people in 6 months. We got around 4,000 people in 6 months of the project. But more than that, it's how we were able to, we had 50% were new nomads, and we were able to educate them around some of the values we defend. For example, it's kind of the nomads giving back, how you should choose where to go, etc. And we built a community around these ideas. So right now, I'm not there. I'm right now in Valencia, but we reached a point where the community is managing the community. And this is the most beautiful thing I could ever expect. Go to a point that the people that acknowledge the message, the people that believe in the mission, they decided to put the step in front and help with the community and managing the community. So that's what's happening in Ponta do Sol. The project spread across Madeira, and now we have Funchal, we have Santa Cruz, we have Mexico, different places, and we are spreading to new countries. One of them I can make public because some people already know Cabo Verde will be one of the next countries in São Vicente. But Friday I will launch a little bit more new island news. I'm kind of in love with islands lately. So yeah, we will launch new islands, new communities to make sure that people can connect, but not only connect, but connect with meaning, which is one of the whys behind all these projects.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Gonçalo. Sounds really interesting, especially that you're going to not very densely populated places, which is completely made possible because of the internet. And I think COVID has started having us pay more attention to that as well. And last but not least, Johannes, could you share about why, what, when, where you started your Nomad Cruise community?
So I started in 2010. I started to be a digital nomad, and I just had an online business, and I just wanted to, travel the world with that business. And I thought that I will meet a lot of people. Like, if you're online, you can work anywhere. It was quite obvious to me to go and travel and try to find more people. But at that time, I didn't even know the word digital nomad, and I hardly found anyone who was also working and traveling. So I started a few projects around this, and I also started it's the first Facebook group for digital nomads that I started back then in 2014. And that grew quite big. And then one day I wanted to get these people together. So one day I discovered a cruise that was going to Brazil, and like a relocation cruise. And I shared this inside this first Facebook group, and we had 100 people who joined after 5 months to go on this ship. And this got quite big. So we organized cruises for over 1,500 people. This group grew to 56,000 people. And then COVID happened. So so then I had to stop this project a little bit. Now I just started a new community, because one thing that I've learned with organizing the cruise is that when you create communities, you need to create something that makes them last, right? So that we can connect a lot of people. And now what I want to build is a little bit similar to what Jenny is doing with the Digital Nomad Girls. It's a membership community where we are going to have 3 events per year in amazing places around the world, but we are also staying connected throughout the year, so that the friendships that you make while you're traveling as a nomad, that you can keep them. Because I always see that is a big problem in the nomad world, that we make friends, we lose friends, and it would be nice to build on top of the things and the relationships that we've built. And the only way, or one of the way to do that, is with a kind of a membership and regular events where we can bring these people who are keen to be part of something like this back together. So this is actually something that's my story.
Amazing. Well, I guess it started all from being a nomad and not really finding what you wish existed. So yeah, this is a common thread. Same for me when I started with the meetups in Lisbon. But yeah, this is a cool takeaway for anyone who is wondering, I can't find what I'm looking for. I have a question for you all. What do you guys think is the importance of also finding an online community for digital nomads and remote workers, especially during COVID? We haven't had the opportunity to connect in person as much as before. There's also a physical distance. Some people are more introverted or don't really like socializing in person as much. Is there something you'd like to say about this? Jenny, maybe you could start again.
Sorry, just to make sure I got that right, about the need of like an online community. Yeah.
Especially since your community is mainly based online, isn't it? So
yeah, I think it's really interesting what Johannes also said, and I was nodding along, because my community started completely online. You know, I was in Chiang Mai, and that is like the heart of the digital nomad world. And even there, I felt like, hang on, there's something missing. I need more. So I started an online community, and that was excellent because I could meet people from all around the world. You know, you're not limited to your location. And I think this is something that is the big difference from the normal 9-to-5 life. You know, like our communities, our circumstances are decided by our circumstances, where you go to school, where you work, and so on. Those are the people you meet. And that's the beauty of remote work and this lifestyle, that you can just meet people from all over the world. And the funny thing was, though, that I started my community online, but immediately there was demand. Like within weeks, there was demand for local meetups, which I started right away in Chiang Mai. It was before Christmas. We ended up meeting every week because it was so much fun. Posted photos, and then people were like, hang on, we want to do that as well. And these local meetups started popping up all around the world. I wasn't there. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then within the year, like within 6 months, people were like, we need more in person. And they asked me to run a retreat, and that's what I did. Like within a year of starting my community, I ran an in-person retreat, which is so like, you know, not digital nomad. Like doing an in-person event is not necessarily an online job. But what I learned from that, it was absolutely wonderful. It was incredible. We connected on such a deeper level that is just not possible in the same way as online, I think. You know, we spent a week together in Spain, but then we left. And then we all went back to our own places. And yes, we tried to stay in touch. And yes, we have the Facebook group, but it's not enough. You really need that kind of that glue between these bigger in-person events. You know, I think a lot of nomads who have done this for a while, we kind of gravitate around times in the year where we spend months together with our friends in certain locations, and we revisit and so on. So the online community is what holds all of that together, I think. And that is why I started just like Johannes said, that is why I started my membership. Like I had the idea for my membership after my first retreat, because as soon as everybody left, I was alone again. And every time I left a location and didn't work at that co-working space anymore, I landed somewhere else, and I had to explain all over what my business is about and who am I. And you kind of have to, it's not really sustainable if you want to run a business. You need that support. You know, it's not only a personal network, it's a professional network as well. So knowing people who know your business and you, and growing and learning together is so important, and that needs consistency. You can't do that in like bits and pieces here and there a couple of times a year.
Yeah, and it's a super effective way of meeting someone online that you share ideas, values, hobbies with, and then if you happen to be in the same place or want to travel to the same place, you already have something in common. So yeah, I think that's great. Same question for you, Johannes. Would you like to expand on what the value is of online, finding an online community besides a physical in-person one?
So to be honest, I've never really focused on the online community until recently, but I think it's super important to have something like this, and I'm sure that there will be hundreds of online communities that are connecting, the friendships that we make as we travel, because basically, if I look back over the last 10 years, I've probably met almost 2,000 people. 2,000 nice people, that I've spent a good evening together or whatsoever. And there were a lot of people that I would love to meet again, but it's impossible, to keep this glue together. And every one of us, if we're not part of some online community, every one of us has got 2,000 different friends, and maybe there's a very small overlap. And basically, online community can people all know each other. In between, there are much better synergies that you can create through an online community that basically sticks together, because we're moving, around the world, but still we meet again in different other places.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, and Gonçalo, what do you have to add to this, sister?
I think the online communities are the place where we can meet our tribe, no matter where we are. One thing that I'm in too many communities maybe right now, but one of the things I use the communities for, which we haven't speak, is for the information. So it's very digital nomads are probably the worst market to try to reach out, because we don't trust any marketing at all. And Johannes is smiling because he's launching the Nomad Village. I imagine how hard it is. We don't trust publicity. We don't trust ads. So it's quite hard. And the only way information flies between the community is on mouth to mouth. And because of that, the communities become this huge hotspot where you can exchange information with people that that want the same as you. We want good internet, we want a community, we want co-working spaces. So when I ask in one of these online communities I belong to, should I go to Tanzania? Yes or no? What's your experience like? I know that somebody in the community went there and they can give me honest feedback. They are not anyone trying to push me to Tanzania. They will say, this works, this doesn't work. And this really doesn't work. So you should reconsider. The same for everywhere. So communities for me are also a way to get the most updated information about anywhere in the world. And another example also is the networking side that we were speaking about before. So the house where I am right now in Valencia is actually from a person, not from my digital nomad tribe, but from my remote work tribe. I belong to both somehow. And this is the house of one of the heads of remote of a big company that I became friends with completely online without ever meet him in person. Still haven't met him in person, and I'm living for August in his house. So the communities also have this power where when you have these like-minded people, you can develop trust online. You can develop a deep relationship online. I know it's weird for a lot of people, but in so many remote teams that I never met anyone in person, I ended up really creating strong relationships with the people. So for me, these communities also serve this networking aspect of getting to know people that are like-minded, and even if we haven't connected in flesh yet, that we are friends, and this is beautiful as well. So for me, the communities serve mostly these two aspects: the very updated information and the networking side of my life.
Super useful. And just to add on this, there are the premium networks, the premium communities, online communities that you can join. Examples are Jenny's and Johannes's, but there are also free communities out there, and there is value to be had there as well. It does become, when it becomes very big, it becomes very noisy, and this is why there's value in the premium networks. But by all means, if this is new information for you to explore, I would say maybe join some of the Facebook groups. So Facebook group that is, for example, called Digital Nomads Valencia or Digital Nomads Chiang Mai. Well, that's a really big one. It's maybe a bad example. But there are Slack communities out there. For the one in Madeira, there's one that I know of, Gonçalo, I think. In Lisbon, there is. Is there any other place where you would say, go and look here first and discover if you can get some information that you're looking for?
So I think that there's almost basically there's a lot of great Facebook groups for local areas, right? So if you want to connect to digital nomads, almost, or like in many places around the world, there's an active Facebook group. So that's always a great place to go and to ask. But
yeah.
If you just want to basically just ask strangers and connect with everyone, these groups are perfect, and you will find all the information that you need there and connect with new people. So I think the value on like more premium communities is rather that you're kind of invested into one community and you want to stay in touch and you want to like grow and take it further, because a certain amount of advice you get just for free if you ask in any Facebook group. And then if it's a little bit more deeper sometimes, or there's like a longer connection needed for certain answers, it can work also. But in general, online communities, Facebook groups. And if there's no Facebook group yet for bigger cities, there's a huge opportunity to just start them now. So even Digital Nomads London or whatever, there's huge cities that don't have nomad communities, and everyone can just start them.
I think everybody now is on Facebook. It's like
typing. My town.
If you just start it now, then people will look for them, and they will grow very, very fast, especially for bigger cities.
Yeah, and it's not that big of an investment in terms of time. There are certain rules you can set up so that you can automate certain things. Of course, there's some moderation needed, but this you never know where it goes. And I think when all of you started your communities, you didn't know where it was going to go, and look at you now. This has become. Go ahead, Jenny.
I would love to add something to that, though, because I think what people should also consider is why are you joining a community? What do you actually like? What is the purpose of this? Like, what is the goal of you joining this community? And I think there can be lots of different goals there, and that's totally fine. So for me personally, I, like Johannes said, I love the local communities. That's where I get information. I'm not in the location yet. I can already learn about it. I can already connect with people who are there. I've done this before. I've had coffee dates set up with new friends that I hadn't even met yet. I wasn't even there yet. So that's great. However, I would also advise that people, if it's really like, okay, if it's information, like local information, that's cool. But what I'm also seeing is that, and this is a trend all across the online world, of course, is that people want everything for free. And there are a lot of free resources, and that is excellent. My group is completely free, of course. But it ends up with people using communities like a Google search engine, and that is not what a community is for. So I think having these really clear guidelines in place to say, well, this is actually the purpose of this group. And I think what people forget, and what I didn't realize at the beginning either, is that digital nomad seems very niche. Digital nomad girls seems even more niche. It's not really that niche. It means anyone who's working online and happens to be a woman anywhere in the world, we can have all sorts of backgrounds, careers, and so on. So having more of a purpose than just that in common, you're like, yeah, we need Wi-Fi and we like to travel, can actually make a community much, much more meaningful and more purposeful as well. So I think that's where the premium communities come in, because you can go more niche, you can go more specific. So what is the actual purpose of this community, rather than just hey, I have all these questions, somebody answer for free. There are different levels, I think, of connection that are possible in different certain types of communities. And, go ahead, check on Facebook if there isn't a Digital Nomad London group. Awesome. But if you want to create a great community, you should have really a purpose at the core from the beginning, because it is a lot of work to run a community. It really is. Yeah. But it's also very meaningful.
Yeah. And you can set intentions, you can set values for the group. I think that it's very important when you step into this. We're so used to consuming everything, as you said, Jenny, that this is a give and take, that to be part of a community, you have to have the intention to give more to it than what you take from it, right? And this is the way that real value is found. Because you touched on this subject, I'd like to jump into the next question. As a community, what do you think our responsibility is in the world? So moving away from the online, but more at looking at us as digital nomads, the community. What do you think our responsibilities are? Gonçalo, what do you think about this?
Well, yeah, obviously, when I use remote work as a tool, my goal is that to improve the communities wherever we are. So when I went to Ponta do Sol, one of my goals is not just to enjoy Ponta do Sol, which we did for 5 months, it was incredible, but also to leave a positive mark there. So I think the first thing we should do is and the easiest one that anyone can do, it's no work at all, is to think before we spend money. It's like, where do I want to spend money? Do I want to spend money on McDonald's? They have a couple of euros already. Or do I spend money in this local burger shop of immigrant from Venezuela who opened now and is trying to make it in Madeira? And these choices that we make every day, we spend, let's say, 40 euros a day, and where we spend the money, it's so important. Where we leave our money, for me, it's like the number one thing I try to educate everyone, all the new nomads, is like, just look around, and when you decide where you stay, when you decide where you eat, just look where you spend your money, who owns the space. And this one I learned specifically from Bali, because in Bali, in Canggu, one of my favorite communities in the world, actually most of the locations are not from locals, are from Australians and other places, and that's okay, but I prefer to give my money to the locals because the average salary is so low. So for me, it's important to go to Hovery instead of going to a big-ass coffee shop, which probably it's even better, but yeah, my money matters. And then what I'm seeing in Madeira specifically is we should inspire locals to work remotely. And this is important for Madeira, but it's also important for other countries where people immigrate a lot. So, for example, Cabo Verde, my next project, there is more Cabo Verdeans living outside the country than inside the country because there is no jobs there. So people have to go outside to find a job. By educating them about remote work, by bringing businesses like Chico's that will teach girls there how to work remotely, we can actually empower those kids to actually find a job anywhere in the world. So we as nomads, we work remotely, we figure it out a long time ago, we can bring this information back. So if someone is learning how to code, I had 30% of people who know how to code in my community. I can just organize meetups with the local community who is learning how to code. So this exchange of information, which we didn't do as much in Madeira because of COVID, it's something that we will build from now on because it's so important. And we can change a whole country. My theory for Cabo Verde specifically is we can change the whole country with remote work. And then if you have extra time, not everyone has. A lot of us work a lot. We don't spend all the time on the beach. It's what the pictures say on Google, but I think most of the nomads are kind of workaholics. Partner with local NGOs and help local NGOs. In Madeira, for example, we are partnering with a dog shelter, and the guys are just going, walking the dogs, giving food. There is now a program that Luis, that was here in the chat, is pushing, which is 1 burpee to help. So people are doing burpees to help these shelters, which is insane. All these little things to help local NGOs. Doesn't need to be money, but if you have money, of course, but just help them be creative, spread the word is helping really, really well. And the last one I will say, in my opinion, is to organize small events to connect both communities, which you, Rosanna, do very, very, very well. So just organize events, invite the local community, invite the nomads, and mingle. It's way too common to have digital nomad bubbles. It's what we do usually. So if there is a community leader, it's part of his job or her job to make sure that we can involve the local community in whatever we do. So if we have a skill share about digital marketing, let's invite the locals as well. If we have an event to help a local cafe that is almost bankrupt, let's bring the locals, let's bring the expats, let's bring the nomad community. So make sure that these 3 work together. It's the dream, and it's where a nomad community can explode and completely change a location. We are not there yet. I haven't been able to build everything. We are started 6 months ago, but this is definitely my vision for the whole nomad community, is where we go, try to leave the place better, even if it's just a meetup, even if it's just a skill share to the schools, even if it's just to speak about remote work there. But if we do that, we are a lot of people. We can literally help changing the world.
Thank you for sharing that, Gonçalo. And yeah, it's a beautiful message to send and, kind of get out of our own little sometimes a little bit egocentric world, right? Because we do have that freedom, and we do kind of live in a world that makes individualism so easy to fall into. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Jennifer, could I ask you what you have to say about this? What do you think our collective responsibility as a digital nomad community or smaller digital nomad communities is?
Yeah, I loved what Gonçalo shared, and I think you really covered a lot of the local stuff, and I think these are excellent tips. I would love to maybe approach it from almost like a bit more philosophical kind of point of view, like zooming out slightly. This is something that, I didn't think about 6 years ago when I started working online, but that I have thought about a lot and that I've seen a lot in the community. And that is like, I feel like a lot of digital nomads end up in this lifestyle because we're unhappy with something in the past, right? Like we're unhappy with our work situation. We don't like having only 2 weeks off a year, whatever it is, absolutely understandable. So we kind of want to escape this kind of rat race, and we're looking for something else. And then, we see the people, as mentioned, on the beach with the laptop. Well, that looks good. I want to do that as well. And I've seen so many people do exactly that. And what ends up happening though is that we kind of end up swapping one rat race for another. So you have climbing the corporate ladder, climbing the housing ladder, the house, the car, the kids. You don't really want that anymore. So you're looking for something else, and you swing completely the other direction. You go by yourself, just me and my laptop and my backpack, and you just create another very individualistic lifestyle. And not only is that not really a responsible thing to do, I think, for the whole planet, but it's just also very unfulfilling and sad and kind of lonely. And that's, again, why we need the communities. But I would go as far as saying, like, beyond the community, what is the purpose of this movement, of this lifestyle? Is it really just a lifestyle? Is it just like, okay, I prefer living like this than that? Or is it, for me personally, I see the digital nomad movement as part of a bigger movement. There is something going on in the world. There's deep inequality. There's dissatisfaction of people. We have been taught that we are only worth as much as we work. We only as much as we earn, and so on. And people are seeing that this doesn't only make us happy, it's literally destroying our planet. And so we're looking for something else. But if we want to look for something else, we need to create something different instead of just taking the same values of, me first, individualism, capitalism, and so on. And sadly, we're seeing a lot of that. It's like the chasing the passport stamps, as many as possible, 50 countries this year, or hey, where are the 6 figures? Have I made the 6 figures, the 7 figures yet? Recently, I've heard about the 8 figures. It doesn't make anyone happy, and it doesn't actually change the world at all. So I would really encourage people to go a little bit deeper and ask themselves, what is actually there? What is really at the ground of your unhappiness? Why are you looking for something different? And I think we already know this. We are very disconnected. That's why every digital nomad ends up somehow involved in a community at some point or other, whether that is a Nomad Cruise or an online community. Co-living spaces are popping up all over the place, co-working spaces. We're craving connection, and we haven't had that in our old lives. So if we are thinking about that, then how can we have the most positive impact? And not only on our own community as digital nomads, but, like one of the books that is most recommended tells people to hire $5 VAs from the Philippines. And is that really the value that we want to bring from corporate into the digital nomad life? Or do we want to say, well, actually, if I'm creating this freedom, then I want to pay my team members in a way that they can have the same freedom for themselves? And yes, they might live in a place with lower living costs, but if they want to be able to travel, we have to compensate them in the same way. So that's just an example. I could go on forever, but I really think zooming out a little bit and asking the deeper questions of what is actually going on here. Why do we see millions of people selling their stuff, packing a backpack and a laptop, and literally fleeing to what are they looking for? What are we really looking for? And how can we make that happen?
Yeah, and knowing what your values are helps you connect better to people who share those values as well, right? So yeah, this is a jam-packed webinar already. Johannes, it's hard to still have something to add, but sometimes you surprise me, and you do.
I don't have much to add. I think both what Gonçalo said and Jenny said was very, very, very good. I agree that there's a lot of nomads who are just, you are just traveling to take advantage of the environments where they go, and that sucks. Right. So if you're just going there because you're like damn, this is so cheap. And of course, like, it's nice. I mean, there's amazing opportunities that we have with this lifestyle, but just to take advantage of things, that's not the right way to do it. And I mean, I think eventually also nomads will, if they've got their finances and everything covered, I believe that there's something really, really big and powerful behind what we're doing at the moment, because only when you experience the world, then you really start to care about the world, right? So I see people like Stellar, who's not here today with us, but like, starting an NGO and sending 400 people to school. And that's amazing. And I believe that there's a lot of these things, we will see this a lot more, right? So first people start to travel, and then they really, once they've done a little bit or enough of this, they start to look for more purpose. And I think that eventually the older generation of nomads will bring a very, very positive impact to many communities around the world.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that some people maybe hesitate with this is because they are afraid that they have nothing to add, but everyone can do something, I think. It could be so simple as having your local corner shop with an old lady who doesn't know how to put her corner shop on Google Maps. It's as simple as that. If anyone will have a skill that is useful to someone else, and if you don't think so, then follow Gonçalo's advice. Show us the receipts. Where are you spending your money? There is always something you can do. And the Pathfinder's motto, leave a place better than you found it. Of course, better is a subjective word, but again, that ties in with what your values are, observing, showing interest, understanding what the need is, and doing your very best you can. But yeah, these were beautiful answers. Thank you so much for sharing, guys. My next question is, if you could do everything over again, and everything that you know now that you didn't know when you started 5, 6, 7 years ago, or even longer, I think, with you, Johannes, what would you advise to anyone listening today when they get started as a digital nomad? Gonçalo, would you like to start?
I can start. Mine is very simple. Well, I'm in love with co-working spaces, and my biggest mistake was going to a place without knowing where I was going to work. And well, it's Singapore, there must be working spaces everywhere. It's not the case. It looks like Singapore. There's not every single cafe is waiting for you in Singapore. They actually don't like it very much. So I didn't prepare enough. So one of my first advices is just find co-working spaces, not just because there are places to work, but mostly because they will be your guides locally. They will be the first community that we will join. And well, it's all about communities for me. So my second advice is very aligned with the first one. I always, wherever I am, I look for places where I can find both of my communities, or at least one of them. And my communities are CrossFit. I love CrossFit, even though after COVID it doesn't show. I really love COVID. I really love COVID. I really love CrossFit and doing CrossFit. So I try to go to places where I can find the CrossFit community, where there's a CrossFit box. And the second one is beach volleyball. These two keep me healthy, but also help me connect with the locals. So one of the last communities where I was, Las Palmas, a place I really love because it's very lively and the lifestyle is very good. I had CrossFit and beach volleyball almost every day. I was never happier in my life because I barely met digital nomads because I was just connecting with all the locals. And for me, it was the perfect lifestyle. So whatever you like to do, if it's salsa lessons, whatever it is, just find places where you can do what you love and connect with the local communities already doing it, because it will be priceless, the information they can give you.
Thank you for sharing, Gonçalo. Johannes, would you like to go next and tell us what you would do differently? Would you know now what you knew, what you didn't know before?
So the first thing,
the other way around.
So the first thing I would do is if I would start with my nomad life, I would really go to some places where there are a lot of nomads and really connect from the beginning and not just go, I mean, that's something, also that is a little bit what drives me, right? Because I've done this for 4 years pretty much by myself, right? There's hardly anyone I met in the first 4 years. I just wanted to go kite surfing in beautiful places, but I was like, it can't be that nobody else is doing this, right? Like, why like this just makes so much sense to go. And so I think, now there's like, it makes such a huge difference to build up a little bit of a nomad network when you're starting with this lifestyle. And then when you have this network, try to create some little traditions so that these friendships that you're building, especially also in the beginning, that they actually last, right? So maybe already start talking about like, let's go somewhere else, when you can have another meetup, when you're splitting up with this group again. And but the most important thing is, I think, to connect immediately to these communities, and also not to to try the lifestyle. If you want to do this, try it out. Don't sell your apartment or whatsoever in the beginning, because some people don't like this at all. And like, don't think too much about it. Just fly to some place or go to some event, stay there for a few weeks, and instead of taking a vacation, do this, but go where the nomads are.
And we had a question via our social media channels, actually, from someone who asked, what are good hubs? Now that you're mentioning this, do you have some advice about maybe, post-COVID, when people are maybe picking up travel again soon? What are places that you would recommend them to go?
So at the moment, I mean, Lisbon, right? That's where you started a lot of amazing things, Rosanna. You're not really talking about it, but I want to mention this here as well.
I'm the host today.
Yeah, that you're probably one of the best community builders in this nomad life, and there wouldn't be such a huge community without you, right? So Lisbon is an amazing place. And I see, like, at the moment, besides Lisbon, there's in Mexico, there were a lot of people over the last month in Playa del Carmen. Medellin has got a little bit of a nomad scene, and Bali. But at the moment it's hard to travel there. So what I believe is that at the moment things are very focused on very few places, but once the travel restrictions open up a bit more, the whole thing is going to explode, and there's going to be a lot of places where nomads are going to go. So it's even hard to say now these are the hubs. At the moment, these are the hubs, but there'll be a lot of new ones as soon as the travel opens up a little bit more. Like, we are not even aware of where these hubs are actually just created right now, because there's a lot more people doing it. Yeah. And
of course, the communities that Gonçalo is creating in a lot of these places. Did you want to add anything to the hubs? Because I'd still love to hear from Jennifer what she would like to advise to other people. But in terms of hubs, is there anything to add?
I can just add two. Well, Ponta do Sol is one of my favorite ones, and Las Palmas. Canggu is still my favorite. Canggu, Bali is still my favorite place in the world. Even though I'm building communities, I have to say there's a special corner in my heart for Canggu. And two places, I think they will explode. They are growing and growing, and after this whole craziness will end, they will explode. Is Valencia, where I am right now. I never knew how crazy good this community is. Valencia and Malaga are really getting really strong very fast. And in Asia, I think Sri Lanka will explode in the next 2 years. It was already growing, but I think it will be almost at the level of Thailand 2-3 years ago. I know it's a big statement, but I think Sri Lanka will be one of the next stars in terms of countries.
Did you want to add anything, Jenny, or shall we go to the full question?
Yeah, I would love. I can just add a few things to here. I would actually. I mean, I have spent time in Chiang Mai. I've spent time in Las Palmas. Las Palmas is one of my favorite places. I do think there's merit to these digital nomad hubs, especially if you're starting out, you want to meet some people. But I would encourage people to maybe go away from the hubs. To be honest, like, first of all, if we want to really step outside of our nomad bubble, then let's not just only go from one nomad hub to the other, because you'll have the same experience, kind of just in a different place. So I would love to see more local travel, to be honest. Like, and that kind of takes us into the question of what would I do differently. And I think, or what would I encourage people to do if they're starting out now, is to start locally. Like Johannes already said, you don't have to sell your apartment in order to test out this lifestyle, like, go slow, start local, stay closer to home. And we all want to go to the exotic places and go to check out all of these hubs, but sadly, like that comes with a footprint as well. And if we're just jetting around all the time, it's not really that responsible. So if you want to go somewhere like that, great, but then stay local. You know, if you want to go to Bali, well, then stay in Southeast Asia for a year and like travel overland, travel by train, check out smaller towns, because those are sometimes like so surprising and much more interesting than the nomad hubs. And the beauty of the community is once you have your friends, you can go together, you can create your own little nomad hub wherever you are and go to places that interest you for your hobbies or what other history, whatever reason. So yes, nomad hubs are great, but also smaller cities, smaller places, local places, even in your own country. Start there. I'm from Germany. I've been hardly anywhere in Germany. I would love to go back and be a nomad there, you know. So post-COVID, that's what I'm hoping to do. Other things that I would recommend if you're starting out now is to get really clear on what you're actually trying to achieve. Like I always come back to this, but I see so many people, they're like, hey, I don't like my job. I don't like my life. I want to be a digital nomad. How do I start an online business? And I'm like, whoa, those are many questions at once. And I think people forget that they're asking like 3 questions at once instead of 1. And that is, do you actually want to do a career change, or do you want a lifestyle change, or do you want both? And if you do want both, that's totally fine. I did that as well. I used to be a scientist. Now I run a business. You know, that's totally cool. But I would really recommend doing one at a time, because I see so many people who like quit their job, pack the laptop, go to a new place. They've never been nomads. They've never traveled long term. They don't know how long it takes them to settle in, how to work remotely. And at the same time, they're trying to build a business. And I'm not saying it's impossible. It's definitely possible. But why would you make it so hard for yourself? You know, like, or if you want to really do that, then go somewhere long term, go to a co-living space, stay there for 6 months, build your business, and then go and start nomading. I would just really go really slow, take your time. I know we want to go everywhere and we want to see everything yesterday, but going slowly, giving you the time to settle into a new place as well, because not everybody's cut out for this. Like I've been doing this for years. I've been traveling for 8 years. It takes me weeks to settle into a new place. And I used to be really ashamed of that in the beginning. And now I'm like, no, that's just how it is. Like some people get used to it in 5 minutes. I don't. I take weeks, and that's okay. So you can plan your travel around that and just kind of do it your own way instead of just following the gurus and the experts who tell you to do it one specific way. So as soon as anybody tells you like, this is the way, this is the best way, I'd be running in the other direction. And I include myself with that as well. Like if you hear me telling you do it this one way, then feel free to ignore me as well.
Yeah, no, these are all good points. You don't always need a complete revolution to change your life. Thank you for sharing that, guys. I have a specific question for you, Jenny. I hope you don't mind if you answer the next question as well. From a female perspective, what do you think, what would you like to share in what it means to you to finding your community? And why do you think it's important for other female travelers? Or perhaps even minority travelers, you know, maybe you have something to say about that.
I don't really want to speak for minorities that I'm not part of, ideally, although we could maybe touch upon it. Yes, I would say there's absolutely definitely need for female communities and female-specific advice. I think the most basic way is it's safety, right? Like women, sadly, still have to consider different types of different things. We ask different questions when we go to a new place. You know, if you're booking an Airbnb, you might not look if there are any streetlights outside. So there are very like specific, practical things that we have maybe more need for than other people. So that's one thing. But I think beyond that, it's also, you know, there's still huge inequality, payment, you know, wage gap and things like that in the normal world. Normal 9-to-5 world, but there's sadly also a huge wage gap amongst freelancers, self-employed people, and digital nomads as well. There was a study a couple of years ago about this, and I think this is more like the more pressing need for female communities where we can actually empower each other to really, like, you know, like charge what we deserve. I don't like saying what you're worth, because what does that mean? But, you know, to talk about things like pricing that traditionally women don't negotiate salaries and so on. So from a work perspective, I think there's a lot to be said about that as well. And to just have a space where we can just feel a bit safer, and we know we're not going to be taken down by trolls because we share some feminist meme about something. I think it's really important, and sadly there is really still a lot of need for that. I wish there wasn't, but there is. I wish there was a time when we can all be in communities together, and that's not the thing. But obviously for other minorities, if you're an LGBTQ plus traveler, there are completely other things to also consider in terms of safety, especially, and even like legality of places. There are certain places where you can be in real danger if you travel, and that's just one of the example, like a quick example of why it's so important to have these niche communities. And I think it's also really important to be part of many different communities, like Gonçalo mentioned the CrossFit. And I think that goes in so many ways. Maybe you need that for specific what you're working on, specific who you identify as, and so on. That's a good way to approach it.
Yeah, and it goes as simple as having the choice to post in a generic digital nomad group, or maybe a female digital nomad group. Do you want to go for a coffee? And sometimes you just don't want to post that. In some groups, maybe you're not, that's just not the mood. And I was asking you about minorities because, as you said in the beginning, something that I also felt when I was a new nomad 6 years ago is that it was very male heavy. The community was very male heavy. However, I believe maybe I'm biased because in Lisbon we have a pretty 50-50 division. Do you think this has changed over the years, Jenny? Do you still feel like women are the minority in the digital nomad community?
I don't think that women were ever a minority in the digital nomad community. I think they just weren't as visible. That was the problem that I was encountering. I think I knew they were there. That's why I started my group. I'm like, I just have to find them. I think they were quieter, and that's something that we see in online spaces. It's not always safe to be a woman and to speak about what you want to speak. As soon as you have any kind of visibility, and most of us who run our own businesses will have to be visible at some point, you might get the trolls coming at you and so on. So I think they are there. They are just maybe quieter and maybe just sticking, and maybe they're in different spaces, but I do think they're absolutely there. And if people make an effort to make an inclusive space, then I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty much 50-50 anywhere in the world, to be honest. Yeah.
Amazing. I have a specific question for you, Johannes. How do you build a community in a way that it lasts? What can you do to keep it going?
Yeah, so I think that, basically in the sense of you need to have some kind of traditions, right? You need to have some traditions to meet up again or to connect virtually again every once in a while. The thing is always you need to make it easy for new people to enter the community. And you need to make it interesting for those people who've been part of this community for a longer time already. Because usually what happens with a lot of communities is that you start them, the people who are inside the community feel like they own it, and they're not interested in meeting new people, right? So, and then essentially they are getting a little bit bored with it, and then they leave again, right? So it needs to be very, very interesting for new people to enter, and for older people, for people who've been longer part of the community to stay there and to come back. And I've learned that, for example, with the Nomad Cruise that I've started, we've been amazing building communities just within 10 days that last quite very long, but it's been hard, to keep these communities going, because every time you do a new cruise or whatsoever, and of course you can't just organize cruises, that's also not sustainable. Then the communities, they fade away again, right? So, but even on the cruise, I've always tried to make it like super easy for new people to become part of this. And I think they are the key things. Keep it interesting for those who've been longer and make it easy for new people to arrive.
Thank you for sharing that, Johannes. Gonçalo, I have one last question for you. You've been working a lot with local governments, with startup organizations, especially, do they understand the importance of community, or are there any misconceptions, you think?
Well, I'm very vocal about it. So when I work with them, they are ready for it, because it's the one thing that most of the locations are failing with. So when we see new governments trying to attract digital nomads, because we see dozens of countries trying to do it, the first thing they are doing is, let's create a digital nomad visa, which 3 years ago was a dream. I was in Bali, I was in Chiang Mai, I know the headaches with visas. But for example, for Europe, it was not that much needed, to be honest. And this is what the idea of most governments: we will create a digital nomad visa and they will come, and then they don't. So this is the first misconception. First, I don't agree with digital nomad visas. I agree with remote work visas. I think most digital nomads stay for 3 months. And then if they want to stay longer, they should have a remote work visa, which is very different from just a digital nomad visa. But that's kind of just a little difference. But yeah, most governments, when they launch these projects, they just think, yeah, we will create this and they will come. And they get very frustrated when people don't come. And we see these over and over again, several places, even in Europe, that launch programs that completely failed. And then we see the other side. We see the people that focus on building the communities, they are the ones thriving. Of course, Madeira is a very good case. And hopefully Cape Verde will be. But we see several places like Ericeira, the co-working, like South Co-working, etc. Lisbon is insane. So we are seeing that. And I'm sorry for the noise. Just these guys went crazy now. And the second misconception I see a lot is that they think that they can advertise to digital nomads. And I think that's the biggest conception of 99% of the businesses that are trying to get digital nomads, but they have no idea about the community. They will do, when I see Facebook ads, I know, well, these guys are new. This would be very hard to sell on Facebook ads or Instagram ads. So I see also this mistake being done over and over again by governments, by co-living spaces, by projects. I think it's word of mouth. It's a surprisingly close and connected community. Like, we keep seeing each other on different places over and over again. We keep going to the online communities to ask the questions. So even if you try to target people with ads to go to Romania, I don't know, I'm not sure if they never did ads, but let's call it Romania, it will be very hard. But if instead of that, you partner with Johannes, you partner with Rosanna, you partner with Jenny, and you say, hey, I would love to have an event here. Is it possible that we can support you somehow to create an event here or create something here that we kickstart the community? And for me, that's the right way to do it. The governments need to understand that it's about communities. This is not mass tourism. This is very different. We go between communities. Even I completely get what Jenny said before, that we should also go outside communities. I'm also more a community guy. I travel more between communities, and sometimes I go outside to rest, which is, I thought I was doing that in Valencia, but then I found that there was a huge community here. But I understand. I think it's a balance. I think it's all about the balance. But yeah, the governments are starting to understand they are failing, and that's why they are looking at the projects that are being well built and are looking for support there and looking to understand there. And when you see the good projects, they are all based in communities. So those are the mistakes, and that is the solution. The rest is easy. Easy.
Thank you for sharing that. If there's any government listening right now, they just got some free advice from Gonçalo. Anyways, we're kind of done with our questions. Is there anything that you think is missing that we didn't discuss already? Because we did cover a lot in this last hour. Should I take that as a no? Guys, just, oh yeah, you have something to add. Go ahead, Jenny.
Sorry, I'm a chatty one. I would add on the question of how to make communities sustainable long term. I think those are kind of two questions. One is for the person who runs the community, and I think that's a thing of realizing that, okay, you run the community, you're the leader of that community, and that's a responsibility. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when they start a community, including myself when I started. But also, if you are part of a community, and I think most people here, they're not going to go and start their own communities. They want to be part of a community. Bring yourself in, give something back. Don't just take. And if you really want to be part of a community long term, and you're just like, oh, all the beginners, and I'm like, I was special here before. Well, give back. Remember what it was like to be a beginner. Help them out, and so on, and evolve and change with the community, because communities are people, and people change, and people grow and evolve, hopefully. So communities will do that as well. And I think if we want to continue this kind of lifestyle, we have to accept that it's going to evolve and change massively. And, again, to zoom out even more, if we want to do this very long term, then we also have to do something about the climate situation. Otherwise, we won't have any nomad hotspots to visit anymore. So if you and your communities can get together and organize some form of activism and so on, then I think that is probably the most meaningful thing we can do. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Jenny. One thing that I'd like to add, actually, I mean, I think all of you have done an amazing job in creating your own community. Jenny, it is a group effort because there's also other people involved supporting and creating the community, but you are the community leader. The same for Johannes. Gonçalo, you gave a pretty good example of what's happening in Ponta do Sol. If you've can't find what you're looking for, but you'd like to create something, but you would not like to create a business around this, partner up. There's other people who you can share responsibilities with. In Lisbon, we're 11 volunteers organizing weekly meetups and weekly other events, so that that every member doesn't individually constantly every week has to do everything. We just take turns, we divide the work, and then it's actually very doable. So don't worry too much about not wanting to have all that weight on you. If you would become a community leader, you can definitely share that with others who have similar values as you. So yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys, since we are, talking for Nomads BA, we have a lot of people from Argentina joining. They're curious to know, probably, have you been to Argentina yet? I already know the answers from you, but you can share it with our audience. I see no, Gonçalo. What do you think? Should you do it?
Maybe November.
All right, yeah. So actually, the conference will take place on the 26th and 27th of November, but 2 days isn't enough. So I'm definitely coming down to Buenos Aires before to start already, to visit all my favorite places, actually, because I really miss it. And also to gather up with my community who's also joining, my friends who are joining. There will be pre-events and post-events, so by all means, don't travel all the way down there just for a few days. Consider staying for a longer while, as Jennifer had suggested, in case you are coming. I know, Jenny, you're not traveling this year. Is Buenos Aires on your radar at all in the future?
Potentially. I'm potentially going over to the Americas next year for a different conference as well, Digital Nomad Conference. And I'm planning, if I make it that far, I'm planning to stay the whole year at least, if not 2. So hopefully back to South America.
Yeah.
It's been 8 years, so yeah.
And this is potential going to be a yearly conference. So who knows, maybe we can match up then. Johannes, tell us about your experience with Buenos Aires.
Yeah, so actually Buenos Aires was my first real digital nomad stop, where I went to South America and I wanted to stay and go there for just 4 months. And I ended up staying 10 months. And I stayed in Buenos Aires for almost 6 weeks. So I did like it quite a lot. It's an amazing city. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm using the right comparisons, but I felt a bit like, it's like massive, like Paris, and beautiful, so many beautiful areas. And when I went there, I didn't know one word of Spanish. And I went there to do a language course, actually. So that's another idea for anyone who's a little bit scared of it. All you need is just the cab to the place where you're going to stay. And even if you don't speak Spanish, just go and learn. And it's an amazing, amazing city.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing. I think that Buenos Aires is a beautiful city. It's if you've never been, it's a city that's super accessible. The internet's great, so all your foundation there to continue to make money online are in place. There are amazing co-working spaces. What I really love about Argentine culture is the entrepreneurial mindset of people. So they're just, probably one of the reasons is the history of Buenos Aires and the history of Argentina in general, where, it's just created this amazing force of super clever people who are constantly just hustling and looking for new ways to make their lives work. So I think when we go there as digital nomads, we definitely have a thing or two to learn from their attitudes as well. So I personally can't wait to get back. There's just one last thing to do, and that's basically to roll out the red carpet for you guys. I'd love you to just one more time tell us about what people can join. Maybe there's something you're launching. There's something that you'd like to share. Tato is helping us in the background, so maybe we can see if we can highlight some of the things. Would you like to start, Jenny? Tell us what the audience can join, what you have to offer to them.
Sure. So obviously my Facebook group, Digital Nomad Girls Community, that is free for any female identifying digital nomad to join. That's the starting point, I would say. And then if you are already working online and you're looking for a community, then the Inner Circle might be a good fit. That really is aimed more at women who are already working online and not people who are trying to still figure it out. You know, that's like not a beginner community. But if you're a super beginner and you don't know how to start, I put together a course, which I called Stop Dreaming, Start Packing. And I launched it in February 2020. And then the pandemic started, quite hilarious. But I packed everything together that I've learned myself and from my community as well on how to be a digital nomad in a more kind of ethical, sustainable way, meaningful way. So I packed that all into my beginner course, and I've got a coupon code of 30% off if anyone wants to join that. Also, if you're not a woman and you want to learn, it's just as applicable. Just a hint, but yeah, if anyone wants to join those, and otherwise just join the Facebook group.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, so the coupon code, just to make sure everyone heard it, is Nomads BA. Is that correct?
I think they need the link. I shared the link here.
I'm trying to get Tato to share it. 1 second.
Don't know if there's a place to put the coupon.
If you're hearing us, Tato, maybe you can share that last link that I shared in the private chat.
I can just put it under YouTube as well.
Yeah? Okay, awesome. So it is basically a coupon link for 30% discount. No. So it is Digital Nomad Girls. Okay, it's pretty complicated link, so maybe we can share it in the comments of YouTube later. Anyways, thank you so much, Jenny. Gonçalo, what do you have to share with us? What can people join?
I don't even know. Well, if you want to come to Madeira, that's Digital Nomads Madeira. Just Google it. You will arrive.
Digital Nomads Madeira.
Hopefully to the website. And on this Friday, I'm doing a free event just to announce what we are doing next. So we have a couple of communities. One of them I announced here, Cape Verde, but you don't know which island. And Cape Verde has at least 8 islands where you can do something. So if you want to go, it's a free event. There is no agenda whatsoever. It's just people getting together and see what they are doing together in the next ones and see what new communities I will try to build. We'll see. I may fail. There's a high chance of that happening. So just join the event. I'll leave the link on the chat here. And yeah, just connect with me. The only place where I try to answer everyone is LinkedIn. So just type my name on LinkedIn and hopefully things will get along. If I don't answer, I'm sorry in advance, but I'm trying.
Oh, she's back. Thank you for sharing that, Gonçalo. So yeah, just Googling Digital Nomads Madeira will get you there. You can sign up, you can get included in the Slack. I think it's pretty straightforward and very useful. So thank you for sharing that, Gonçalo. Johannes, you have something, some news for us, I believe.
Yeah, so I started the Nomad Cruise a long time ago. That's not going to happen too soon. Working on Nomad Base. It's a very new community. Actually, we're just starting it this week and just looking for some people who want to be part of this from the very, very beginning. Basically for those members, those new members, we're organizing an event in Cyprus and in Mexico a little bit later this year. You can get 2 free tickets to the events. The events feel just like Nomad Cruise, just on land. So we bring a lot of the concept of Nomad Cruise on land, and the idea is that we will organize 3 of these events for members of this community, because this time I want to build something that lasts, right? Like a community that can keep in touch. So we're going to organize for this community 3 amazing events per year that will be in different locations in the world. And we don't want to encourage everyone to go to every event, but just pick one event. Want everyone to fly around the world for everything, but basically, yeah, I'm starting this now. There's an amazing deal. Basically, you can join now and become a co-founder of this new community. And otherwise, yeah, that's just available until tomorrow, actually. And then tomorrow we're going to close this for a while. Yeah, so, but it's 20 euros a month, so you can quit it if you don't like it. It's no problem. It's a very, very nice little community of very, very interesting people so far. So yeah, feel free to join, and otherwise just follow the project. There's also a free Facebook group called Nomad Base.
Thank you so much, guys. I really want to thank you. This was just jam-packed with all kinds of valuable information, not just for people who are aspiring to become nomads, people who have been nomads. I know there are people who have been lonely nomads as well, and I think that we also touched on some interesting topics about community, our responsibility, and how we look at this movement. So thank you all so much. Hopefully see you in Buenos Aires this year or the next. And I can't wait to see you again, guys. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.